Welcome to Only Trying to Help, the podcast where we try to help you be helpful to other people. My name is Dr. Kate Watson, and we are here today to talk a little bit about wanting to help when sometimes maybe you feel like things are a bit urgent. And I've brought on a great guest. We've got Hilary Logan with us today. Hilary is a licensed clinical social worker. Hilary is also a professional trainer and the owner of the Motivational Interviewing Center for Change. So thanks for being here, Hilary. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great this morning. Good to see you, Kate.
Feeling good? Feeling ready?
I'm feeling ready. I got my tea. I'm ready to go.
And thank you for coming back because you have been on the show before and we've talked about all sorts of things. I think you know from having been on the show before and also like conversations that we've had that we often talk about those well-meaning things that people do when they're trying to be helpful. And I reached out to you for this one because I got to thinking, and I wonder if you agree. I suspect that a lot of people out there, if they really use their heads and they really think, they probably know deep down what kinds of things are helpful to their friends and their loved ones and their coworkers and their neighbors. And I think deep down, again, if we really turn on our logic here, our logical selves know that it's most helpful if we are patient and we have empathy and we are good listeners and all of those things. And yet I find, and I'm curious your experience with this, that sometimes we get worried that we need to solve a problem right now or something feels really pressing or urgent, and we like abandon everything that we know. And when we abandon everything we know, we start to act out of like desperation. And the types of things that we do tend not to be so helpful. What do you think about that? Or what's been your observation about that, you think?
On the way to school this morning when I was dropping off my teenager, I did that very same thing. And I say that out loud because I think we do it all the time because we're human. Even when we know better, even when those of us who've had a lot of clinical training know better, it doesn't protect us from the fact that we flip our lids, we lose that knowledge. We, in the moment, are emotional, reactive, invested, feel like things are urgent when maybe they aren't urgent, or maybe they are, right? Like that's a part of our human experience.
I think so too. And I'm really glad you said it that way because maybe there's a misunderstanding that if I just like read this book or, follow this list of tips, that I'll know exactly how to be there for everybody who needs me in life. I can support my kids, I can support my spouse, I can do it all. And I think like this mistake that we make or this roadblock that we hit where we start to think things are so urgent, it's probably something that's never going to go away. Like, we might always have that quick reaction that says, like, "Oh, someone's in need, I have to do something." And we then, again, lean on things out of desperation rather than our real knowledge about how to be helpful.
That's exactly it. Our brain kind of takes over and reacts in a habit or something that is it's just right there. And so I've heard phrases. I'll probably kick off a lot of slogans from picking them up over the years. But we can't control our first thought, but we can our second. So some compassion toward ourselves for like maybe my first thought was mean, controlling, aggressive, reactive. Maybe even it came out of my mouth. But how quickly can I catch myself and bring myself back into whole brain, really, right? Like, because that's our upstairs brain that is going offline, the one that knows better and that can tap into empathy and that can think, oh, if I say this, then this other not so good thing is going to happen. All of that just we lose access to when we are reactive. And so one phrase, another slogan that I fall back on is the first thing is to get undisturbed.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide which thing I wanna say more about. So
Okay.
I'll
Both of
go
them.
I'll go in order, which is, like, how comforting it is to know that I can't control my first thought. And you immediately described this then as like an invitation for a little compassion for ourselves. Like that first thought, okay, let's paint a picture. Somebody calls you, it's your best friend or it's your teenager or someone you really care about. They call you and say, "Oh, I'm really having a big problem today." Like our first thought is I have to fix this.
Mhm.
I have to solve this because I love this person and I just can't stand seeing them this way. Or as you say, like I'm a bit disturbed, right?
Yeah, or you should. That might come to mind. That might be the first thought I have is, "You should fill in the blank."
Right. Well, the first reaction, if we kind of go in order, might be I should do something. And then the thing I think I should do is tell them what to do. So then it comes out of my mouth as you should.
Mhm.
Right? So the thought is, "I should fix this," and then the words out of my mouth are, "You should do this," or "You should do that." And, just to complete the thought, I love the idea that those initial reactions and thoughts are probably just a part of me and will always be there, and it's not that that's ever gonna go away, it's what I do to challenge those immediate thoughts and reactions and to maybe put them into check. I often talk about it as like noticing that thing inside of you that wakes up and is like on high alert and like getting it to like go back to bed, like tuck it in,
Right.
make it comfy.
Right. Soothe it.
Yeah, let's soothe that a little bit. Let's give that a nap. We don't need that right now. But it will wake up. And my job is to say, "Ooh, I don't want that part of me awake right now. Let me see if I can calm that down, comfort it a little." And then I love your slogan of like, I need it to be a little less disturbed. Something in me
Mhm.
got disturbed. I need it to be less disturbed so that I can
Uh-huh.
truly be helpful to people. Because when we are so activated, being patient is not accessible to us. Being a good listener is not accessible to us. Expressing empathy is not really accessible to us when that part of the brain, I love that you call it the upstairs part, is offline.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's from Dan Siegel, neuroscientist and researcher. He talks about the upstairs and downstairs brain, and really names that when we get activated, when we get stress comes at us, and that can be perceived stress or real stress or emergency stress. Like there's stuff comes at our brain, and our brain very quickly decides for us, usually, like what we'll do in that moment. And that's why I say let's have some compassion because that first thought, that first reaction may be coming from the downstairs brain, which is the part of our brain that is evolutionarily designed to help keep us safe and protected. And we may be responding from our downstairs brain, our reactive brain, our emotional brain, our not thinking all the things through brain first, but we need to get regulated again. So our invitation, right, is to get undisturbed, get regulated. Um, what is it that's going to help you, like you said, put that part of you to bed or kind of thank it and say, okay, thanks for your care and compassion for this person and your good intention of wanting to fix this thing or help this person. Thank you. And let me get back into my whole brain.
So I don't know that I know the answer to this, and it's certainly okay, Hillary, if you don't, but let's ponder. What is it that feels so urgent though? Like, why is there I guess I wanna introduce the idea of, like, there's something about time, like, it has to be now. My daughter is crying, and I have to stop it now, not in a few hours from now. Like, what do you think maybe drives us? And again, I'm gonna admit, maybe I don't really know, but what do you think drives us to feel this urgency of, like, my friend has a problem, and this problem needs to get resolved right here, right now.
Yeah, it's a great question. Like, what fuels the urgency? I think some of it is what our brain decides is urgent or not by the input that's coming into it, and all of our body picking up on cues and things. And then also there's our own history and trauma and stress and experiences that can so easily get triggered. I also think that it's important to acknowledge that as humans who are wired for connection and caring, that when people are in distress, it's very normal for us to become distressed, right? We're connected. And me getting distressed with you is often not the solution. Right? It's actually for me to regulate, so I'm available for you to help regulate from that. But that's not an easy task. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I know that we are probably just scratching the surface in our fields of understanding the kind of survival mode that we're entering into when we become distressed because somebody I care about is not doing well, and our hearts start to beat fast and we get that like bead of sweat down our back. You can't see my legs and feet right now, but under the table I'm doing the like bouncing leg thing of like just feeling activated
Activated.
and
Mhm.
on edge. And I suspect that when we are so worried about people, it sends us into this kind of it's like a fight or flight mode. And that fight response is, I got to do something. I got to fix this. I'm not going to give up. I will be relentless. I will keep suggesting ideas until they finally take one. And maybe a flight mode is like how many of us freeze up in these moments and or actually that's probably more a freeze mode, but a flight mode might be even something like, "Look, I can't help you.
I gotta get out of this situation.
If you're not gonna solve your own problems, there's nothing I can do. So I'm just gonna leave you this to you. I'm gonna throw my hands in the air, or you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink." Like we say sayings like that. And I suspect that some of those unhelpful things are really a kind of survival response. And I want that message to be out there because my fear is that people think you and I might be saying, oh, if you try to fix everyone's problems, you're dominating and controlling and mean. No, I think it's actually some of the best parts of you coming out. They're just not that helpful, but it's like a good part of you that really loves people and cares about people, and you care about people so much you almost can control yourself. And that's
Mhm.
actually a lovely thought that you care about the world that much that you might actually lose control. But when you lose control, you're just caring about people, you're not actually helping them.
Right, I love that you differentiate between caring about people versus helping people. And I think I agree with you that I think behavior comes from a place of positive intention and self-protection and need to regulate or re-regulate, right? So if my friend calls me and is talking about some hard situation or desperate situation, and I start to get dysregulated and feel that need to fix, help, like say something, make it go away for that person, then I may say or do things to try to fix them because the thinking is if they get back regulated and okay, then I'll be okay again. Versus let it begin with me. That's another slogan. Which is like, let me regulate so I can access my whole brain and be able to be a presence for this person to support and partner with them on what's their dilemma? What do they think they want to do about their dilemma? Why might they want to change that dilemma? Right? Like we don't have to, we kind of out of that desire to like, let me help you feel better also so I'll feel better, then we get in the mix and end up taking over this burden of responsibility for people and we get entangled and exhausted and worked up and we don't have to put ourselves through that. But it's not an easy choice to make.
Yeah, you're sort of switching around this common, belief that we have that if I fix other people or I get them right, if I change them in some way, I'll feel much better. And you're saying,
Right.
"Okay, let's reverse that." And I often say to folks, you so many of us already know you can't really change people. You can't make people do things. I don't think anyone listening is going to be surprised to hear me say that. But there's a second part of that sentence. So it starts with, you can't change people, but you really can be very helpful to people. if you're willing to change something about yourself and the way that you're approaching this person, the way that you come to the conversation. And so if you approach the conversation with the idea of, I've got to change something about me here rather than I need to change something about them, it really does reverse what it is I'm even working on. And it allows us to refocus on the only person you ever had any control over anyway, which was your damn
Exactly.
self.
Exactly. And actually, that can be empowering,
It's huge.
right? Like, it can feel like, "Oh my gosh, I'm powerless over another person. I can't make or control or change or stop this thing that's happening." Like, okay, then I have to feel my feels about that, right? I might be trying to prevent myself from feeling the grief or the anger or whatever it is that's coming up in response to my powerlessness over fixing or changing or managing other people. And so there's something there that's hard to get through, and we can, right? We can do hard things. And the empowerment of, "Oh, I can gain tools and regulate myself and find the ways to stay grounded, stay serene, even though, like, I'm gonna get pulled." Again, I wanna just say, this is natural. I just got pulled 30 minutes ago, taking my 15-year-old to school. Was yelling at me, I was yelling at her. We were both in our downstairs brains, not having a moment of connection.
And I love that like 10 minutes later, you're on a podcast about trying to be helpful to people.
Exactly.
Perfect, perfect. Yes, we're gonna keep getting pulled, but I love that you're framing this as this is actually not bad news. I think bad news is when people just say the beginning part of that slogan, when they just say,
Right.
"Well, you can't change people. Nothing you can do." Ugh, like how depressing and unmotivating and unexciting and disempowering. But when you complete the thought, you can't change people. But there is
Yeah.
something you can do to really help them, and it's with a person who you do have control over. Now I know what to do. Now I need to work on myself. And Hillary, you've used the great word regulate a lot. I wonder if maybe not everybody knows what that means.
That's a great point. Yeah, when I think of like self-regulation, that's talked about a lot in the therapy world, but it is returning our nervous system to a bit more of a balanced state, returning our brain a bit more into that whole brain from reactivity. And so a lot of therapy modalities talk about self-regulation skills. And that's where we get to bring in this invitation of, I don't know what self-regulation skills work best for you, right? This can be an invitation to our listeners to think about, gosh, what are the things when I'm feeling flipped out, stressed out, dysregulated, activated, that are gonna get me undisturbed, bring me back into my whole brain, regulate me back, or basically, calm the F down, right? Yeah, so we can engage.
I think that's a great way to describe it because folks who were listening who might be thinking, "But what does regulate mean?" Like, I think you just said it beautifully. Like, it's calming the F down. And we all have some ways of gaining that kind of stability of our emotions. As you mentioned, Hillary, it might be different for everybody. A really common one that I think gets dismissed by cynics, and by cynics, I mean by me for a long time, is just like deep breaths. And I was
Yes.
definitely a breathing cynic. Like when people would be like, "Oh, I think you should just take a deep breath." I would want to swing at them because it was just like, "Are you kidding me? I'm breathing all the time. Like, you don't need to tell me to breathe."
Right.
But I'm a recovering cynic on breathing because I've come around to understand that it's actually more than maybe I thought it was.
Right.
That taking a really deep inhale, slow and deep inhale and exhale is not like hippie stuff. Take
Right.
Taking a deep inhale and exhale is communication we are
Right.
sending to the nervous system. We are talking to it and we are
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, nervous system, actually, like, no reason to be on high alert right now."
Right.
And your nervous system will get that message when it senses like, "Oh, look at that. Oxygen is flowing." Well, what does that mean? Your nervous system will read that
Right.
oxygen as a signal that says everything's okay.
We're safer. Yeah, you're kinda trip or trick your brain back in because what happens is our brain and our nervous system get dysregulated and upset and, like, pulled in, and our thinking is distorted. We're not able to access all those things you've talked about that are actually the things that help us help people. And so, right, inviting ourselves into that and breath, like square breathing has been there's a bunch. See, here's the thing. I got sent this yesterday by some friends. It was like 10 funny but actually effective ways to regulate your nervous system. And you can get on TikTok you can get on any of the socials, Instagram, and look up ways self-regulation, tools to vagus anything related to vagus nerve resets. There's humming, and the vagus nerve is a nerve that is a big basically what kind of helps just takes the input, and helps us decide whether it's safe or not and can really mess up our whole body system. Like, when we're dysregulating, our vagus nerve is saying, "Danger, danger," that our digestion is messed up, we have tension in our body, we're not able to access our whole brain, etcetera. So, the listeners can Google these tips and tricks to regulate yourself or activate your vagus nerve, or what are the other things you would tell people to look at?
Um, Grounding
Mhm.
techniques. Again, these are maybe sound like, psychology buzzwords to a person who's not in the field of psychology or social work. But you could easily find, again, TikTok, Instagram, like they're all going to have loads of pages that are dedicated to things like grounding. And again, grounding is about kind of like finding some safety in the here and now rather than worrying about what's going to happen in the future or what happened in the past. It's like getting you
Right.
cued into like right here in these four walls.
I'm present.
There's no saber-toothed tiger trying to kill me. And so that would be maybe another thing. You're making me want to introduce as a regular segment like things to go Google. Because
Yeah.
because what people don't need, Hillary, is you and I listing this stuff for them.
No,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
go Google that. Yeah, you don't
Go
need
look.
us to talk about that.
I mean, a cup of tea. Like, that's actually one of my regulations, and I learned this back when I worked in wilderness therapy, like leading wilderness trips, like 25 years ago. When we learned wilderness medicine, when accidents or injuries happened, we were always more than an hour from any kind of medical interaction, and so we learned sort of first, the phrase was, "Make a cup of tea," because there's actually nothing you can do right away in that first second that is going to make the life or death difference, because we were at least an hour or more away from any medical interventions.
Sorry, I
So
just wanna interrupt and say what great training to learn that, like, really nothing's an emergency because it can't be.
right. Right, and then, is everybody breathing? Is anybody bleeding? Then we're okay. Then I can take a beat. Then I can take a beat, and I can try to remind my body and my brain that in this moment I am safe and okay, even though I feel activated and pulled and upset and scared and upset, angry, and, grief, maybe sadness for this person, longing for things to be different, and whether that's breathing or whatever you Google, or it could be something activating, like standing up and pacing while you're like, what is it that's gonna push that upset energy out to?
I didn't know you had all that training. I've known you a long time, but not that long, so not 25 years long. That is fascinating. We'll have to talk about that some other time. Um,
Absolutely, yeah.
so far, Hillary, I think we've done a good job, or I hope we've done a good job of framing all of this as like, look, folks, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, if you're having these thoughts of like, this is urgent, I have to do something, I have to help, welcome to the club. Like, this is just what being human is about. And I'm glad that we did that rather than painting a picture like everybody's just controlling and dominating and trying to take over. If you will allow me a moment though to just like step aside over to this like, maybe a little bit more cynical view of this. Sometimes I wonder if that urgency creeps up when there's a kind of performance anxiety of like, I have to perform well here. Do you ever think maybe that creeps in for people? Like, someone has turned to me, they're looking to me for help. And if I don't do this, like, I look bad or I
Mhm.
didn't perform as I wanted to perform. Do you think maybe, I don't know, what are your thoughts?
I think that's very true, especially if we have developed some identity or have high value around us as a helper. Maybe that's the role we have in our family system or I have my daughter is like, my friends all come to me for with their problems, like so those identities develop. And if we're actually getting paid as helping professionals for helping people, then boy, do we have that extra yeah, like, responsibility that we can take on. I have a kind of a short story here
Yeah. Yeah.
I could share. I was getting some clinical supervision because I also still have a small private practice, and I was talking about a private practice client, and I was wringing my hands with my supervisor. I was like, "I just can't decide. He's at this crossroads, and I don't know which way to guide him and how to help him with this." And I was activated, right? You could see it in my body now. And, she sort of grinned at me. This was not very long ago. She sort of grinned at me, and she said, "Hillary," and this is very loving. She's like, "You of all people should know that you don't have to know." And I like to come back to that as an anchor in my body and in my mind is to remind myself, I don't have to know. I don't have to be the expert in someone else's life. I don't have to have that gem or piece of information that is gonna make all of the difference. I don't have to be I can't possibly be an expert in someone else's life. I don't wanna be an expert, and so that's too great of a burden. For those people that are spiritual, that's what God's for. Or, like, it's actually not a role we want to consciously take, is thinking that we are responsible or in charge of someone else and that we have the be all end all, solution in that moment. That's a tremendous burden.
Mm. And I want our listeners to hear Hillary and I, two trained therapists, say it's not like we or anyone got some secret instruction manual to the universe that the rest of you didn't get, right? It's not like we are over here with like a book of all the secrets of how to live your life and you just have to pay a therapist to give you the secrets. And so if you and I don't have it, Hillary, how could everyday people have it? So I want the moms and the dads and the coaches and the team leaders out there who always feel like they have to help everybody know that none of us have a secret manual to the universe that we can use to help everybody.
We're not in charge.
It's all right to not know, as you said. Um, yeah, and you mentioned how this can really be tied to a person's identity. I think when someone comes to me looking for some kind of help or support, I think I feel really flattered, like, oh,
It's a powerful
they
feeling.
thought I could be helpful, okay. And so I'm flattered. I take it as a compliment that someone called me in their time of need, that they trusted me. And then I wanna prove to them that, like, you called the right person. And so I think that cranks up my urgency of, like, I need to show them as soon as possible that they definitely dialed the right number today. They went for the right friend. And, I sometimes have to remind myself that the reason people turn to me is because I don't jump in with solutions. It's because they're trusting me not to do that.
Yeah, to listen.
And if I get a little worried that maybe this is like this helping thing isn't working out, I will say out loud, I want you to know that I'm trying to give you space. There might be silence here. Like that's on purpose. This isn't because you've upset me or you've startled me. Like I will just kind of talk out loud what's happening. I sometimes even say to folks, I'll bet it's annoying for you when people try to like urgently move you to doing something or changing something or fixing something. And the folks I say that to always go, "Oh, yeah, that's really annoying." So it's just kind of like a reminder for me, "Okay, so I can't I can't do that then."
Yeah, walk it back.
So they've just affirmed for me I definitely should not save them right now. But I'm kinda glad that we touched on that as like it's another factor of like, I wanna perform well.
Yeah, and I this makes me think about gambling for a moment. You're like, "What's the connection?" Let me let me explain. Um, in the fancy lingo, it's called intermittent positive reinforcement, right? It's where, if you're sitting down at the slot machines and you're pulling the handle over and over again, every now and then there's that win, and that's so powerful, that reward for our brain. Intermittent positive reinforcement is the most powerful behavioral reinforcer that there is, that we sometimes get something good even when we don't most of the time. And I think this translates to us as helpers because intermittently, that piece of information or advice helps or works, and it is such a huge reward in our brain. We're like, "I said the thing and they did it," right? Like, it's powerful. It is a hit. It is like a drug hit sometimes.
Fireworks going off. Yeah.
Fireworks in our brains. And so it is natural for us to keep going back to chase that, to try to get it again. "Oh, it worked that time, so I'm gonna keep thinking I've gotta come up with the idea, or maybe this time." Well, it's very powerful reward system, and we also know that the casinos make more money off of us than we usually do, right? That's usually not what it's called for.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll do for your life about as much as gambling has done for people's lives. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, turned out to be a good analogy. Thanks, Hillary. Um, well, we've only got a couple minutes left here. I wanna just say, because 'cause you've mentioned a couple mantras or, like, slogans that tend to be helpful, and those were really good ones. One that helps me, if this is useful for our listeners as we're starting to wind down here, is just remembering that the person who's maybe looking to you for some support or help or guidance, they've made it this far. So, like, a few more minutes or hours or weeks or whatever it is that they're gonna wrestle with this problem may not be the end of the world. They've made it this far without you, and they'll make it another 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 days, whatever it may be. That slogan helps me a lot, especially when I start to really worry about people and their safety and their well-being. I remind myself, well, they have come this far without me, so what makes me think they absolutely must have my help now?
Right.
It's perhaps just a lie I'm telling myself that this moment is more important than all the other moments. So that one helps me. Do you have any other thoughts or things that maybe we should say before we wind down?
Well, yeah, I think you've heard all my slogans today. Is everybody breathing? Is anybody bleeding? Then it's not an emergency. Right? It's like, and then therefore reminding your brain and your body to get present, get as grounded as possible, get back in the whole brain, take some deep breaths, right? And honor what is within that person. We don't wanna take their struggles from them by jumping in and fixing. We wanna support them in talking out and working through their dilemmas.
Really well said. You say it like someone who talks about this a lot, Hillary.
I do. Yeah, I do.
And knowing that you talk about this a lot and you do a lot of training for professionals and things like that, is there anything you want to share with our audience, like a link to your website or anything like that that we can make available on our website for you?
Sure, absolutely. Um, I'm a trainer as you are in motivational interviewing, which is a conversation style used to interview people for their motivation around change. And I have on my website a free motivational interviewing learning library that has a lot of free resources, handouts. There's a section on there of using MI with family that references some books and courses, one free course for MI parenting. So there's lots of resources out there, and there's podcasts like this one. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, great. Thanks, Hillary. I'm happy to link to those things from our website. Our website for the listeners is onlytryingtohelp.com. So if you want to go there, we can easily link to all the things that Hillary just mentioned so that you can stay in touch and see what she's up to. Hillary, thanks again. I'm sure I'll be tapping you to rejoin because you're one of our favorites. So thanks. Thanks for being here.